Just, oh God, where's everybody? God, I had a friend.
Born in 1982, First Blood hurled audiences straight into the orbit of an action icon that would endure for decades, John Rambo. The curtain opens on the silhouette of a Vietnam War veteran adrift, carrying invisible wounds that would never heal. Returning to his homeland, he finds no warm embrace, only isolation, alienation, and haunting torment. Stepping into a remote town, Rambo confronts Sheriff Will Teasel, a domineering figure who sees him as roadside trash. Merely because of his rugged appearance, he's driven out of town like a worthless outcast. But when the string is stretched to its breaking point, an explosion erupts. An entire police force and local military pour their full strength into hunting down a lone man, a veteran trained to be an absolutely precise killing machine. The only one with the power to halt this tragedy, Colonel Sam Troutman, Rambo's mentor, his spiritual father. First Blood is not just a firestorm of action, it rips apart the veil hiding the mental anguish of a veteran shunned by society. The fierce blend of violence and tragedy turned the film into a direct punch at the time of its release. And the most shocking revelation, the original script intended to seal Rambo's fate. He was meant to die in this very film. That's just the surface of countless secrets behind the smoke of gunfire. Join me as we dig into the strangest and most shocking truths about First Blood, the work that crowned Rambo an immortal legend. 1. The ending was once so dark it had to be hidden forever. Have you ever imagined that Rambo, the hero who left the world breathless, was actually supposed to die in the first film? The version we know ends with Rambo collapsing into Colonel Troutman's arms, sobbing, laying bare all the pain of a veteran. It's a bitter ending, but one that leaves hope, paving the way for his next journey. But in the original filmed version, there was no hope at all. After unleashing his rage, Rambo collapses, exhausted and utterly hopeless. Trembling, he clutches his gun, forcing his spiritual father, Colonel Troutman, to pull the trigger. A gunshot echoes through the night. Rambo falls, blood gushing, his eyes glazing over before going lifeless. The screen fades to black. No future, no sequel, no unyielding icon. Just a pitiful tragedy of a soldier buried by life itself. That scene was fully shot, ready for release, but when tested with audiences, the theatre was stunned, then erupted in outrage. They couldn't accept Rambo dying like a wounded animal. The fierce backlash forced the crew to make a desperate pivot, rewriting a more humane ending, letting Rambo survive, wounded but not defeated. That decision changed the entire history of cinema, but the film's fate was still not secure as a real-life incident struck the production, too. A real weapons heist right on the set, right in the middle of filming. First Blood in the town of Hope, British Columbia. A real-life incident left everyone stunned. A truck loaded with prop weapons, from machine guns and rifles to handguns, was broken into and completely cleaned out by thieves. The total value of the stolen items was estimated at $50,000, a massive sum for the production at the time. Even more terrifying, those weapons were guarded by actual soldiers, yet the thieves still pulled off the heist, turning the film into a real-life crime scene. In an instant, the action fantasy set became a real security hotspot. Local media buzzed with the story, police launched an investigation, and the crew panicked over the risk of the entire project grinding to a halt. To salvage the situation, the Canadian military was called in to guard every remaining weapon, turning the film's backstage into an actual barracks. Stallone himself later admitted that the prop arsenal was likely better guarded than a small military base. Fortunately, most of the stolen weapons were eventually recovered, but the incident etched another layer of drama into the film's production history. Yet another nightmare awaited in the editing room. 3. a 3-hour cut that made Stallone want to bury the film. Few would guess that before becoming an action masterpiece, First Blood nearly turned into an unsalvageable disaster. The first cut ran over 3 hours long, dragging and chaotic to the point that no one could recognize the story of a proud veteran. The pacing was uneven, the dialogue verbose, and many scenes were redundantly repetitive, leaving internal test audiences exhausted. Sylvester Stallone himself, who had staked his career on Rambo, bitterly remarked that he wanted to buy back the rights just to prevent the film from hitting theaters. In his eyes, First Blood was turning from his greatest hope into a dangerous laughingstock for his career. But instead of giving up, Stallone dove into the editing room. He patiently worked with the editor, ruthlessly cutting dozens of minutes of excess footage, removing redundant dialogue, and refining the entire rhythm. The result was a film trimmed to under 100 minutes, tight, intense, and brimming with energy. That bold decision saved the film, transforming First Blood from a murky wreck in the editing room into an enduring action monument. Yet, just when the backstage story seemed to stabilize, a dramatic twist among the cast reshaped the face of First Blood. 4. Trautman's role changed hands in an instant. Can you imagine if Colonel Sam Trautman wasn't played by Richard Crenna, but by a completely different face? How would that have altered Rambo's image on screen? In fact, the role was initially cast with Hollywood legend Kirk Douglas. With a career spanning Spartacus to Paths of Glory, Douglas had the gravitas to become Rambo's spiritual father. But trouble arose when he demanded control over the dialogue and, crucially, the ending. Trautman would have to shoot Rambo dead, staying true to the novel's tragic spirit. Stallone and the crew fiercely objected. They believed that for Rambo to become an icon, he couldn't die in the first film. Tensions escalated to the point that Douglas walked away just days before filming began. In the chaos, Richard Crenna was called in as a last-minute fix with barely any time to prepare. Yet something remarkable happened. With his calm, authoritative, yet compassionate presence, Crenna embodied Colonel Trautman in a way audiences could never forget. A role switched at the last second became the perfect choice, steering the film in a new direction. And while a key role was shaped by that sudden twist, in another scene, Stallone was ready to sacrifice his own body to bring raw truth to the screen. 5. The cliff jump that left Stallone with real broken bones. Deep in the forests of British Columbia, the crew prepared for one of the most daring scenes. Rambo, hunted and desperate, leaps off a sheer cliff. Many assumed a stuntman would stand in for Stallone, but the actor flatly refused. He declared, "If Rambo has to feel pain, then I have to feel that pain too." And so the cameras rolled. Stallone's body plummeted, crashing through branches before slamming into the ground. The impact was so severe it cracked several of his ribs, leaving him in such agony he could barely breathe. Yet he gritted his teeth, continued filming, and made that scene one of the most authentic moments. On screen, Rambo's ragged breathing and contorted face were Stallone's real pain. No acting required. If that jump cost Stallone his body, in the original novel, Rambo's victim count was far more terrifying. 6. The original Rambo was far colder and more bloodthirsty. The Rambo on screen is portrayed as a wounded veteran, a survivor shunned by society, yet still human. But in David Morrell's novel First Blood, the character is entirely different. The book's Rambo is an emotionless killing machine, coldly slaughtering police, soldiers, and even innocent civilians. His body count reaches 15, maybe 20 victims. He doesn't even bother to keep track. This isn't the tragic hero of the screen, but the portrait of a cold-blooded psychopath warped by war. If the novel had been adapted verbatim, Rambo would never have been loved by audiences or become an icon of empathy for veterans. The shocks didn't stop there. Another accident in a different scene left a lasting mark on the film. 7. A punch that broke a stuntman's nose echoed on screen. In the scene where Rambo erupts at the police station, the cameras captured every ferocious, chaotic blow. but one punch crossed the line of acting. Stallone, caught in a frenzy of immersion, landed a blow so hard it broke the stuntman's nose. The scream of pain was immediate, not a staged cry for the scene, but the instinctive reaction of a man genuinely knocked out. Instead of cutting it, the crew chose to keep the moment. It was too real, too intense, making the entire sequence explode with energy. After the shoot, Stallone frantically apologized, while the stuntman, clutching his bloodied nose, burst into laughter. That moment became part of the legend, helping elevate the film to an unmatched peak. But to turn a cold-blooded character into a humane icon, Hollywood endured a decade of torment, aimlessness, and sweat. 8. A 10-year development hell before the film took shape. When David Morrell's novel First Blood was published in 1972, studios scrambled to secure the rights. But instead of coming to life quickly, the project languished for over a decade. More than 18 different scripts were written and discarded. Some versions turned Rambo into a psychopathic killer, even bloodier than the book. Others leaned into political satire, making the story a mockery of American society. Directors and big stars came and went, leaving behind a project deemed too risky, too vague. First Blood bounced from Warner Brothers to Columbia, then to Carolco Pictures, like a hot potato no one dared hold for long. It wasn't until Stallone stepped in that the project found a way forward. He took the script, stripped away the gore, infused it with humanity, and reshaped Rambo as a victim of his time. From a chaotic mess, an enduring cinematic legend was born. But the casting story for the lead was no less dramatic. 9. When superstars nearly became Rambo. Can you believe that before Stallone became synonymous with Rambo, Hollywood considered a roster of the biggest names? Clint Eastwood, the stoic Western hero, Robert De Niro, the master of immersion, Al Pacino, the fiery icon, Dustin Hoffman, the versatile star, and even Steve McQueen, the action legend. All were eyed for John Rambo, but one by one, they declined. Eastwood felt the character didn't suit his style. De Niro and Hoffman were overwhelmed by the violent script. McQueen was deemed too old. Pacino wanted a Rambo so frenzied and battle-hungry it was uncontrollable, a vision the producers couldn't accept. If any of them had said yes, Rambo would have been an entirely different figure, perhaps as cold as Eastwood, as explosive as Pacino, or as introspective as Hoffman. But fate chose Stallone, who poured his heart into the role, rewrote the script, and created an irreplaceable icon. And thanks to that role, in a single night, Stallone shot to international superstardom. 10. The first Hollywood film to hit Chinese screens. In 1982, when First Blood was selected to screen in China, it marked a historic milestone. At the time, the billion-strong nation had barely opened its doors to major Hollywood films. But the image of a lone, resilient veteran standing against injustice resonated with millions of viewers. Rambo ceased to be just a movie character. He became a symbol of strength, perseverance, and the will to survive. The response in China was explosive. Theaters were packed, and people whispered Stallone's name, seeing him as a hero from the distant West. Overnight, Stallone went from an American star to a global phenomenon, and First Blood became a bridge for Hollywood to expand its influence into Asia. But for that fame, the crew endured a real-life nightmare, a blizzard that blanketed the sky. 11. A snowstorm turned the set into a nightmare. The crew chose Hope, British Columbia, as the setting for its rugged, cold atmosphere, perfect for First Blood's oppressive tone. But nature didn't cooperate. A sudden blizzard swept through, blanketing the area. Vehicles were immobilized, equipment froze, and the crew was trapped in hotels for days. The shooting schedule was thrown into chaos, with many scenes needing to be reshot or rescheduled, creating immense pressure on the production. Yet the adversity brought an unexpected gift. The freezing cold, thick ice and vast loneliness of the mountains became vivid material for the film. On screen, Rambo appears in a chilling, desolate landscape, isolated to the point of suffocation, all thanks to that brutal blizzard. And in that bone-chilling cold, Stallone chose to keep his character deeply human, a man who never intends to kill. 12. An action film where Rambo doesn't intentionally kill anyone. When you think of Rambo, do you picture a cold-blooded warrior, armed to the teeth and ready to take down anyone in his path? But the truth in First Blood is entirely different. Throughout the film, John Rambo doesn't intentionally kill a single person. The only casualty, Deputy Galt, dies not by Rambo's hand, but from losing balance and falling from a helicopter during the chase. All of Rambo's actions stay within the bounds of self-defense. His chilling forest traps and precise strikes are meant to disable, not to kill. This was a critical change Stallone fiercely defended. He wanted audiences to see Rambo as a broken soul, a man destroyed by war, not a bloodthirsty monster. That humanization made viewers empathize, mourn, and stand with Rambo throughout his journey. But in the original novel, the tragedy was far harsher, with no escape for either main character. A grim novel ending audiences never saw. In David Morrell's novel First Blood, the story doesn't close with Rambo's sobbing breakdown, but with a chillingly brutal ending. After days of bloodshed, Rambo is gravely wounded, dragging himself through his final moments. He clutches his gun and a pack of explosives, intending to turn himself into a human bomb for a fiery death. But his exhausted body can't muster the strength to light the fuse. In his final moments, Colonel Troutman, his mentor who knows him best, appears. There are no words of comfort, no miracles, just a single mercy shot that blows Rambo's skull apart. And it ends. Both Rambo and Teasle die, two symbols of different generations of American soldiers falling together, leaving a desolate portrait of war and its consequences. A tragic, heavy ending that, if kept on screen, would have ensured Rambo never became a surviving legend. Because of this, adapting the film sparked fierce debates about whether Rambo was a hero or a villain. 14. The script nearly turned Rambo into a pure villain. Behind the scenes of First Blood, a tense battle of ideas raged over who the true central character was. Kirk Douglas, originally cast as Troutman, wanted the story to follow the novel's spirit. Rambo as a crazed, warped shadow of war, with Troutman as the true hero who ends his former pupil to save the town. It would have been a dark version where Rambo was little more than a villain. But Stallone and the crew fiercely opposed this. They wanted Rambo to be a victim of society, a warrior carrying tragedy but still human. If Douglas's vision had prevailed, audiences would have viewed Rambo with fear, not empathy. He certainly wouldn't have become an icon for millions of real-life veterans. In the end, Douglas dropped out, and Rambo took to the screen with a more humane face than ever. While script debates raged, another backstage detail stunned viewers. The soldiers' gear in the film wasn't fake, but real battlefield equipment. 15. The National Guard's gear in the film was all real. When audiences saw the bumbling National Guardsmen in First Blood, few realised their gear was entirely authentic. The crew borrowed real, heavy steel helmets, worn-out jackets, and leftover equipment from Canadian military surplus. The shabby look of the gear perfectly matched their nature. Part-time soldiers, clumsy and naive as they hunted a seasoned veteran. On screen, every scratch and faded uniform added authenticity, turning the chase into a life-or-death game that felt all too real. If real gear brought the film to life, the man behind the camera, whom no one expected, was the one who breathed soul into this masterpiece. 16. From comedy director to the father of Rambo before directing First Blood, Ted Kotcheff was known for light comedies and dramas like Fun with Dick and Jane. no one could imagine that he would craft the grim, violent and despairing portrait of a veteran shunned by society. Kochev took on the project when no one else dared, and with his unique vision, he turned First Blood into more than an action film. A tragedy about trauma and isolation. That bold choice stunned audiences. A comedy director gave birth to Rambo, the icon of war and survival. But sometimes, even the smallest details could shift the entire tone of the story. 17. The Batcave turned into a rat cave in First Blood. In the novel, when cornered, Rambo hides in a Batcave, dark, foul and evoking primal fear. But for the film, the director had to change it. Not for artistic reasons, but practicality. Rats were easier to control than bats and safer for the crew. So, the Batcave in the book became a rat cave on screen. A seemingly minor detail, but it created a different icon. The scene of Rambo being bitten and clawing through the dark, swarmed by rats, haunted audiences just as much as the original, and amplified the desperation he endured. And as the smoke cleared, a mournful melody unexpectedly rose, leaving a lasting echo beyond the gunfire. 18. A haunting ballad closed a decade of gunfire. Amid a film filled with bloodshed, what lingered was a poignant song. It's a Long Road, composed by Jerry Goldsmith, with lyrics by Hal Shaper and performed by Dan Hill, plays as Rambo walks silently into the darkness. Its melancholic melody is like the lament of a broken soul, closing the journey with stillness rather than explosions. The ballad never climbed the charts, but etched itself into viewers' minds, becoming the voice of the entire series. Later, whenever that melody returned in sequels, audiences knew Rambo's tragedy and pain were about to resurface. And alongside the music, another detail became legendary, following the character for decades. 19. The iconic knife handcrafted for Rambo. The massive knife in Rambo's hand wasn't a cheap prop, but a masterpiece by Jimmy Lyle, Arkansas's master bladesmith. Its long blade, serrated spine and hollow handle packed with a survival kit, matches, compass, fishing hooks, needle and thread, was designed for wilderness survival. It wasn't just a weapon, but a symbol of self-reliance, of a warrior ready to endure any circumstance. After the film's release, the knife became a phenomenon, spawning countless replicas. To this day, the Rambo knife remains one of the most iconic weapons in film history. And like a sharp blade slicing through the box office, the modest budget film carved out a miracle. 20. A $15 million film defied odds to become a $160 million legend. With a budget of just around $15 million, First Blood was never expected to achieve greatness. It was too dark, too heavy, and seemed unlikely to compete with the glitzy blockbusters of the time. But everything flipped. Upon release, the film grossed over $160 million worldwide, far exceeding predictions. This success transformed Rambo from a one-off character into a global icon, paving the way for sequels, comics, toys, balls, and even cartoons. From a small project, First Blood rose to become a monument, creating one of the greatest action franchises in cinematic history. First Blood deserves to be seen as the dark jewel of action cinema, where violence merges with tragedy to create a haunting experience. The film doesn't just depict gripping tension, but highlights the mental anguish of a man shunned by society. Stallone embodied Rambo with brilliance, both fierce and deeply human, making the character a timeless icon. From the music and settings to the performances, everything blends to create a work both authentic and tragic. If you also love thrilling behind-the-scenes stories like these, don't forget to hit like and share to spread the word, and follow the channel to not miss the next shocking cinematic tales.